So, guys, this is the Speakeasy podcast where we go behind the scenes on what it is to be the successfully paid speaker and author. I'm your host, Altavis Pelzer, the voice coach, and I'm super excited about our guest today. So, hello, Chef. How are you?
Good afternoon. How are you?
I am doing great. So I'm super excited because, again, when we think about a chef, and I know most of you are like, immediately Chef Gordon Ramsay came into your mind or one of the other chefs, and you just went, yeah, it's intense in that kitchen. Well, we're going to talk about that intensity a little bit and, what you really need to put into that pot in order to have that success. So with that being said, Wayne, tell them a little bit about yourself and then we'll dive into today's topic.
Well, I have been working, as you said, for over 30 years in the hospitality, culinary, restaurant business, numerous different jobs ranging from hospitals, various types of restaurants, from fine dining to casual dining, to quick casual, to quick service, lots of different input that I'm able to see. Many jobs I had as a second job or a part-time job while working a full-time job in my career. I've been teaching for almost 20 years now, a career tech program in culinary arts at the high school level. I taught for 5 years at a local community college here in Dearborn, Michigan, Henry Ford College, in their restaurant management program. I was part of their management restaurant teaching adjunct team there. I've also, over the years, gained a lot of insight into what it takes to work in the kitchen, as you said, and the kind of caliber of person it takes to be in the kitchen. And one of the things that I really appreciate is that we have the American dream can still be sought after as it comes to a sense of reality for many people. And that sense really happens in the restaurant industry. Many people many chefs across their lives started out as a dishwasher. If you ask many professional chefs, that you say, what was your first job? And often it's the hardworking dishwashing job. And then they do some food prep while they're doing dishes, and then they learn some skills. And the next thing you know, within a year or two, they're put on the line to become a line cook. And then they're moving quickly and learning, and they're picking up the ins and outs from the local chef that they're working with. And then from there, it's a matter of mobility, moving maybe to another business where they learn more under a new chef until they move on. And then you balance that. Some of them may balance that with some education. And so career tech education has really come a long way. And one of the values is that you can get a 2-year degree or certificate and still make pretty good money, and many people are getting a bachelor's degree coming out of school, and they find themselves barely scraping by, making $30,000, $40,000, and they got a boatload of money. You could get an associate's degree, or oftentimes even a certificate in career tech education, or specifically culinary or restaurant management, and able to see yourself just finding some passion, if that's where your heart is, and really make some solid money. And the idea, though, is you talked about intensity, is you balance that with not only the money, but you got to be willing to have your heart into it and put some time in. I talked about the American dream. We see a diverse culture in the restaurant business, one of the most diverse cultures, and often it's fueled with immigrants. And so over the years, I worked with many immigrants, Latino and many others. And so then one of the things I did was I wrote a novel that spoke to the issue of the American dream and how many Latins or Hispanics come and work in kitchens, and they work hard, and sometimes they work 2 kitchen jobs, and then they send home a portion of their money so that their families can live better in their home country. So I try to put a personal face on it, and in my novel, I speak to some of the management issues that crop up, and what happens when it's busy, and the intensity is there, and how people handle it, and whether or not maybe they don't handle it well. So it's kind of a somewhat similar to Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential, except I really tell a personal story of a couple of Hispanics as they travel from Guatemala and come and work in Michigan in a local restaurant in Oakland County. So, but I really like to demonstrate that the American dream is still alive and well, that people are willing to work hard and have a passion for what they're doing. And that's one of the reasons why I like to teach, even though there's an element of the younger generation that doesn't seem to have the same work ethic that many people think they should have from 10, 20, 30 years ago. But there's still a strong element where the young people just need to feel motivated and be able to demonstrate their passion. One of the problems we have is in the the Food Network has really portrayed the food service business as glamorous, and then people go out and get a job and they find out that they got to work 8 or 10 hours and they're working all day on their feet. And so somebody who's not used to that element struggles with that. And so, that's where the intensity and passion comes in. Something, one of the things I find interesting, I work with teenagers and we do a catering and we work for 8 or 10 hours. Somebody works extra credit and they work a long day with me and they're running out of gas after 6 hours and they want to sit down, and we've got a large amount of food preparation to still complete, and they struggle with that because they're not used to the imposition of being able to have to put in time on their feet and be able to do that. Now, some people love it, and so if they love it and their heart's in it, then they say, give me more, let me do more. And so that's who the people I want, is somebody who hungers after that kind of work ethic and who wants to demonstrate that. And so those are the people that businesses want to hire, restaurateurs and chefs want to hire out in business. One of the three things we still see is people that think they know it all, and so they're unwilling to learn, and they don't have a sense of responsibility about themselves when they come to work. And then so managers and chefs really struggle with this idea that, what kind of work ethic they come to when they come to it, and are they willing to learn, and are they willing to take directions? So some people they went to culinary school for 2 years and now they think they can get promoted to sous chef right off the bat, and they have to put in some time and learn the ropes to that particular restaurant or business. And so, there's an expectation there that many people don't realize, that they have to be able to put in time and put in the effort and demonstrate not only their passion, but they need to demonstrate some skill they've learned, and the willingness to learn under a new chef, the willingness to take direction without complaint, and the willingness to demonstrate their character, so soft skills like being on time, being in proper uniform, and having the correct vocabulary, and being able to speak properly, and have a good team attitude and a good team effort. So
I know that's interesting simply because I know with my children, I have 4 teenagers and they're in high school. And so my oldest daughter is actually taking a food prep course at school. But most high schools have taken home ec, food prep, everything out of the schools. And so just like the basic things, because we know all teenagers know how to boil water in order to make ramen. We know that all teenagers pretty much know how to pop something in a microwave. But those basic skills that you were talking about earlier, a lot of those things are really missed. Teenagers are home, middle schoolers are home, normally by themselves and trying to do things on their own because parents are now, usually both parents are working and things of that nature. So what would you say to those who have children who may be starting to get interested and starting to want to be in the kitchen and learn some of those things? What would you say would be the first thing to teach them?
Well, there's an element there that people, there's one thing to work in a kitchen and learn some basic skills in the kitchen, and then there's also another element to demonstrate the soft skills and going to work for somebody and being able to willing. So there's 2 elements there. The first one, that people can, there's many students I deal with that don't have common sense. I had a student in my class yesterday that we were copying recipes and then converting the recipe, and they stapled they were supposed to be converting a recipe on the computer using the calculator on the computer, and this teenager was playing with the stapler, and he stapled his thumb or finger. And so so there's a common sense issue that we have conversion ratios for converting tablespoons to teaspoons, and we spend a number of days and even weeks practicing that at the beginning of the year, and then people have forgotten how to do that. And so I end up having to help them convert the recipe. So some basic things and where to find things in the kitchen, and then even common things and common courtesy things like, I'm behind you with something hot, or watch out, there's a spill on the floor, I'm cleaning up here. And so there's a common sense thread that many times we seem to lack. And we need to be sure that at home we're reproducing that so that they can be prepared to go either in the academic environment or even prepared for a part-time job where the and the managers or chefs are certainly going to be really appreciative of a young person who's has common sense, and part of the thing is if they can anticipate a problem and look to see what they can do to help with the problem before they have to be told about it, and maybe they say, hey, can I help do this, or I see this problem, can I help do that? Or if it's a spill, or if it's something's about to fall, a lot of these common sense issues that people don't open their eyes around them and see, they can pick those up. Now, the second issue that we address from a work standpoint, if a teenager is going to get a job, then they need to be prepared to go in and ready to work, to actually work. And so, we struggle with these issues that, and even as adults, we want to be able to check our phone throughout the day. We want to be able to check texts, and we want to be able to take a phone call now or whatever. And because we have our cell phones so accessible in our pocket, and studies have been shown how much bacteria is on an iPhone, and because we take it everywhere, including the bathroom. And so there's an issue that young people and even adults in our society and our culture now have to get past, that can they work continuously without having to tap into their computer on their phone to check the latest social media. And then on top of that, once they get to work, are they ready to work? Are they mentally and physically ready to work? And we've over the years, we've seen many people make poor choices about coming to work, where in the restaurant industry has been filled with horror stories of somebody drinking too much the night before. I worked with a couple people that stayed out till 2, 3 in the morning. We got to be at work at 7, and then they're dragging their behind for the first 3 hours of the shift, and I have to pick up their slack. And then if you tag into that, they may have a medical condition, and so they drank too much, and on top of that, they have a medical condition, and then they fall on the floor or whatever. And so the adults many times are making poor choices like that. We want to see young people start to make better choices than that, where they're prepared to, they get a good night's sleep, and they come into work ready and attentive. And some of the shows like Hell's Kitchen, to me, I don't like all the swearing and the bombacity of the show, but I like that it shows the intensity, and it shows the fact that there are standards that he expects, Ramsay does, from the culinarians that are coming on the show. And so he's imposing these standards on them, and even when it seems like many times we in life, and many of us have done this, where when we've gotten busy, or we sometimes give our standards up, because, hey, it's busy, and we'll sacrifice standards when it's busier than what we're used to, or than what we're prepared for, or what the staff is prepared for, whatever the issue is. Whereas he demonstrates that you don't give up the standards even when you're stressed, or the people around you are stressed, or there's a problem with the food or the equipment or whatever. You don't give up standards. And so that's an interesting thing that, we need to kind of look at, is how we can help young people be prepared for the standards that are expected of them. And, even in education, we try to implement that, but, there's been a sliding scale of, even in philosophy, whether or not, I don't know if your state has changed their philosophy about homework, but it used to be that homework was imposed and it was graded heavily. And now in the Midwest, they're really trying to suggest that homework should be checked, but only graded on a slighter scale and not as heavily graded. And so, because the more important thing is the final product. And so in the culinary world, that's really not that big of an issue if I'm teaching culinary, because I want them to demonstrate their final product. But it is, to me, a little bit of a sad commentary that we lose the importance of, we're de-stressing the importance of what it takes to get there. Sometimes it's about the journey, and and the continuous practice. You can't get good at chopping vegetables unless you do it every day, and you can't get good at holding the knife properly so you don't trim some skin off your fingertips unless you can get used to doing it properly. And how long does it take to make a habit? It takes 25 days, and then you just got to keep doing it. So even the soft skills, how long will it take to create habits for your soft skills where you're on time? When I was younger, I worked at one job 60 hours a week, and I felt like I worked 12 hours a day. I'm going to come in right on time. And that was a poor attitude to have in my early 30s. And I thought, now, I wasn't prepared for the day, but I thought I put in my dues, and it was a poor attitude. And so trying to get people to come in, like the military says, 10 minutes before is on time. And so that's the kind of attitude that employers want to be able to see and appreciate in the younger generation coming in.
You said a great statement that really stood out. And it was, it's about the journey and continuous practice. So what is that next step? Because I know you've been doing this for 30 years, but how do you keep yourself at the cutting edge, no pun intended, of what's going on in your industry? Do you read? Do you take classes yourself? What is it that you do on a regular basis?
Well, it's a little bit easier for me, even though I should challenge myself more. We all have our own personal goals. I'm trying to work on my second novel. I'm trying to learn Spanish better, and I'm trying to increase my culinary skills, and I'm always trying to be a better teacher. And so you battle these things, and on top of that, I try to be a godly man that answers mostly to God, and then to maybe my wife and the people I work for. But the issue then becomes is which stakeholders are most important in your life. And so if you're in a job, you certainly want to continue meeting these needs that you have. And so you want to continue learning as you go. You want to continue finding new elements, as you said, and new trends. As a teacher, I'm required to do that. So I do professional development where I go to workshops, and we hear from local chefs at some of the upper echelon culinary schools, and we find out what needs to be done. And we look at some of the new trends that are coming across, and we also are able to then to promote that to our juniors and seniors in high school, and as they think about what they want to do with their lives, and we can bring some of that new ideas and the new passion back to them. So from a business standpoint, I think business people have the same struggle because they're working 40, 50 hours. But those who have a real passion, I have a friend of mine that has a real passion for cooking, and he put a tattoo on his back that says mise en place, which means that in a culinary stance, it means to be prepared, to everything put in place. And so his passion has demonstrated to me that he's that gung-ho that he's always trying to be ready for the day, almost like the Marines who are ready for the day or seize the day. So certainly people in business, they're working 50 hours or 45, 50, 60 hours a week, and they want to be able to have a balance of quality of life with their family and their personal life. But then they, sometimes they're looking on what other chefs are doing around town. They're maybe going out and dining out and seeing what somebody else is serving, seeing what somebody else is making, certainly looking online and some new trends. And maybe they take some local culinary classes and what they can do. There's workshops they can do. With the American Culinary Federation, the Chefs Association, you can actually get accredited and look at gaining some accreditation. You could become a culinary certified culinarian. You could become a certified sous chef, a certified chef. You can go to local chefs meetings and meet with local chefs at the local chefs chapter. So many different things that you can do to increase your skills and do that. Even as a student, in our local chapter here in the Detroit area, we have, I've taken high school students to these nice chef meetings, and demonstrated to them some of the fine food that the local chefs put on at some of the local colleges. We have a really nice college, Schoolcraft College, where they have about 4 master chefs there that teach there, and they do an outstanding meal when we have the chefs meeting there. And then they do some kind of workshop. And so the last meeting I was at with some students, we saw a hog being butchered in front of the as a presentation for everyone to see. And so there's lots of different elements you could do.
That is epic, because I think that experience speaks volumes. Being able to have it hands-on, being able to see it and have it right in front of you, that definitely takes you to a whole nother level. And it allows you to kind of visualize yourself in that position. I'm one that I always speak to, sometimes you got to get outside of where you are. Sometimes you got to get into a different atmosphere. And so I definitely agree with you there. Now, one of the questions that I always ask everyone who comes onto the show is, what has been a blunder for you? So I know in 30 years, we want to think that all 30 years are completely perfect, but in the 30 years that you've been in this industry, what has been something that you look back and you say, maybe that wasn't the best idea, or maybe I should have did that a little differently?
Well, sometimes you look back in your life and say, maybe I should have made better choices with my education or gone right into this. It took me 15 years to get my bachelor's degree in restaurant management because I changed my major 3 times and I was working full time. And so, I had a large sum of money that I could have spent the first 2 or 3 years and just make a decision and be done with it. But, I think part of college life, or one of the hardest parts in college life, is trying to figure out who you are as a young person. And that's why it's not unreasonable to change your major a couple times. One of our goals in career tech education in high school, and they're really trying to work at the high school level, is helping young people really delve into where their passion is and where they could see themselves working, so that they're not changing their major 2 or 3 or 4 times at the college career life. And not that any classes are a waste when you're paying for classes, but what, maybe it could have been better. I look back and think, well, I was majoring in English and journalism and then history. I was going to be a history writer. I was going to be a literature teacher. And then my wife, my first wife said, oh, you really love this. You ought to stay in management. But then she said, now, why don't you think about going into teaching? You really like training people. So I really considered that. And then I looked at what it would take to to get a new degree, or to get a master's degree in teaching. And so I went that way. I think the one thing I wish I had done, because I had, initially I didn't think I had a really huge passion for cooking. I liked cooking. My favorite part of cooking was in the restaurant business, and having the fast pace and the intensity that you were speaking about, where you're grinding it out with 4 or 5 or 6 people on a cook's line, and you got 50 tickets hanging or 40 tickets hanging, and there's more coming, and it's a nightmare for some people. But when it's going well, it's like a great euphoria. When it's going bad, it's the worst day of your life, or the worst day of the year. And so those are the days I look back and say, wow. And so after a number of years, I wished myself that I had gone back and got a culinary degree and learned a lot of the really foundational basics, because it took me a number of years to learn a lot of the basics working for a lot of different chefs and a lot of different businesses, because at some point I ended up working more in the front of the house within the dining room, and then the back of the house. And so then I worked both ends of the business. And so, when I started teaching, I thought, man, I wish I would have got my culinary degree from a local college. And once I realized that's where some of my passion was as I got older, in my late 20s and early 30s. So I thought about going back and doing that, and I never completed that. And then I went to try to get accredited through the Chefs Association. I was really close to getting certified as a chef, and I've completed all the classes that you need to take, but to some of those I'd already had with my restaurant management degree. And then I completed the written exam, and then I took the practical test, and I had to take that, and I took it two different times. And the first time I missed it by 5 points, and the second time I did worse. And so I was discouraged. And so then the problem is some of the things that you do to prepare for that, I don't always do at the basic level at the high school, because it's higher end food. And so, you need to be able to practice it often. And so when I was preparing for it, I was spending a large amount of money to practice 10, 12, 15 times. And especially I love to make soup, but one of the soups for the test was called a consomme, and you got to get it just perfect. And so I didn't nail it, and that was one of my downfalls. And so, and then, personally, my father gave me he handed down these tremors in my hands, and so the judges thought I was more nervous than what I actually was. And so you look at those kinds of things and you think, okay, how important is that goal to me? What's really most important to me? And so I don't know that having a certification with the Chefs Association is going to make me the man that I am. It certainly is just one more credential. I'm a certified teacher. I have a certification with the National Lodging and Management Association for as a certified educator in management. And I have a bachelor's in restaurant management and a master's in teaching and a minor in English. And I've worked at over 20 different restaurants. And so I have a lot to offer when I teach, and even when I have a part-time job or I do some catering. So lots of different opportunities. I still try to keep my feet wet in the business.
I definitely agree with you there. Oh my goodness, that is phenomenal. And, just the experience and the journey itself and how it progresses for each of us is going to be different. But you get to see that longevity. One of the things that you said that I think everyone should take note of was a lot of times we go out for the certificate, we go out for the degree, we go out for this extra thing that we think we need, but it's not necessarily what we need. So we got to take inventory of what it is that we're really trying to do and what we're really passionate about. And so I definitely love that. Like we could be talking about this for forever, but I want to let everyone know how they can get a hold of the book and how they can get in contact with you if they have more information that they would like to give.
Well, I've been trying to blog once a week, but it's been a little bit less lately because of some things going on in life. But I have a website that's www.chef storyteller. So it's all one word, Chef Storyteller. So on there you can see a link to Amazon for my first novel that I've written. And then I have numerous articles I've written about cooking and about immigrants and other things that are on there. I have a few recipes and some poetry I've done in my life. So lots of things in the backstory if you wanted to flip back through it and see. I have a Facebook page that you could follow me on called What's Cooking with, my Facebook page for my novel is Chef Storyteller. And then I have an Instagram that's What's Cooking with Stolt. And I post pictures from the classroom when we're doing fun stuff that we're cooking and in my cooking club. So you can always follow that and see. If you ever, you can buy my novel on Amazon. It's on Kindle for only $5. If you're ever interested in a signed copy, you can message me on Facebook or through email or on my website, and I would be happy to send you a signed copy. Those are $15. And and I'm currently working on a new novel that deals with the Dearborn, the immigrants from the Middle East, and I'm focusing on a Arabic family that comes from the Middle East and how they deal with acclimating here in Dearborn, which is right next to, not far from where I live. And then at some point, one of the main characters is going to get a job in the same restaurant that happens in the first novel. So I'm going to draw back some of the first characters in the first novel and bring them back in. But in the first novel, I focused on the kitchen. The main character was a cook, and so I showed some of the fun scenes in the kitchen, and the chaos and the stress of the kitchen in the middle half of the book, and what happens, and there's even a fight scene that ensues. The second novel, I'm going to focus on the story of this woman who becomes a waitress and the stress. I believe servers have one of the hardest jobs in the business because they have to be able to accommodate all the needs of 25 to 35 people for 4 or 5 tables in a section, and be able to anticipate their needs. And so I'm going to highlight what happens in the front of the house and what that looks like, and the joys of working with the public, and then certainly the downfalls of it.
So I have to say that I love that you come from so many different angles, especially with, first and foremost, I want to say I completely applaud you. One of the things that you said before, we end today's segment was that that you not only do you have immigrants who work with you, but that you're learning Spanish so that way you can better communicate with them. And I think that speaks volumes, because communication is a huge reason why we're able to either see from other people's standpoint, or we miss some things and we kind of have this huge divide. And so I want to say that is astronomical. For me, as a mother of teenagers, that they're learning different languages, Korean, one's learning French, one's currently in Greece. And so I'm always teaching them about different cultures that, that they may not have come in contact with as of yet, or that they may one day come in contact with. It speaks to not just where you are, but where you're elevating yourself to. So I definitely applaud you for that.
Well, and there's a certain element that I appreciate the work ethic of the Hispanic population and what they put into it after I worked with them. And so I wanted to be able to better relay that when I interact with them. And certainly I wanted to try to say, hey, here's an interesting story you might relate to if I want to promote the novel to them or talk about their story. And so, and now even, the real issue is that, I don't condone people coming here illegally, but I also understand when people do, especially when they're trying to strive for a better life. And so I try to walk that fine line. I tend to be more conservative in my spiritual and political views, but I can appreciate why somebody would come here even illegally, because they want a better life for themselves. And that's the face I put on the first novel of these Hispanics that came here, and they come illegally, and then at some point they become legal. But in my second novel, the immigrants that I'm focusing on are coming here legally, but they still face a number of stresses. And one of the struggles we face is that we as Americans look at people and we say, well, you shouldn't be here, why aren't you, why are you imposing? And there's all these assumptions and stereotypes we deal with that we somehow got to get past. Now I certainly agree, if somebody's coming here illegally, that we should take a stand to that. But once they're here and they're here, we need to be careful of how we judge people. And from a godly standpoint, I ought to be demonstrating God's grace to these people. And I don't need to be shoving them out the door and being rude to them. And if I'm working with somebody, even more so, I want to be able to demonstrate a team attitude and a teamwork ethic. Hey, let's work this out and get past it, and not, in my class, I show an old film that's like 10 years old, but it highlights this issue of it. One of the characters calls a Hispanic some silly nickname, and so he ends up being disrespectful to their culture, and that's something that we need to highlight, is how can we appreciate each other and where we come from and where we're going. So
I applaud you. I love it. I love every bit of it. So guys, you guys know that I always try to bring you different authors and speakers from different genres, simply because I want you to understand that we are a community. We are coming together. We support each other. But not only that, but you never know who has the answers to the questions that you've been asking. You never know who has the insight and the wisdom to help you move into another another level for your own business. So with that being said, if you're a speaker or an author, I would love for you to come on and be a guest. bit.ly/speakeasy podcast is how you can join us. And if this particular episode resonated with you, I want you to go and leave a review over on iTunes by going to bit.ly/speakeasy podcast show. So I want to say thank you again, Chef, for coming on, Chef Wayne. I appreciate you guys. And to all of our live studio audience, thank you for those of you that came in and left comments over on Facebook. We appreciate you as well. And until next time, guys, don't forget to press it out. See ya.